Does it work? Let's see. Yes, perfect. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I believe most of you here in the room can agree with me that DeFi is still a very dangerous place to be in. Even if we just look at the recent events from the last summer, starting with the Terra Luna crash, followed by the FTX crash happened last November, the USDC DPEG in connection to Silicon Valley Bank, and even recently with the Euler hack, we should ask ourselves, why is this happening? I mean, there are these companies in the space who are dealing with the security on the protocol level, like auditing companies. There are companies who are dealing with economic incentive designs on the protocol level, like Chaos Labs and Gauntlet. And yet, we have more or less a systematic repeat of these events. Like, even we cannot talk really about black swans because it's not an unexpected event if every few months something like that happens. And the question is actually, okay, what is happening there? I mean, we have these companies, they're analyzing that, yet these protocols here, they are just old few years, like 2 to 5 years, and yet they're managing to attract billions in assets in capital. And if DeFi wants to go mainstream, DeFi has also to attack that side of the plate. In the end, also liquidity provision. That means like these one who provide the capital have to know what kind of risk they are dealing with. And I mean, just to sum it up, when the DeFi movement started, we promised ourselves, okay, we are going to build a new financial system which is going to be open, transparent, more secure, without a centralized entity. In the end, what did we achieve? We have now a financial system which is actually worse than the traditional one, because those kind of events are not happening every few months there. Just a few words about myself. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Solity Network. Spent most of my career working for major German corporations like Audi, E.ON, ZF. I'm in crypto since 2016, mostly working on the DeFi side, and Solity Network was co-founded beginning of the last year. We closed our first financing round in September of last year. Since then, we managed to build a team of 18 people, out of which 14 are working on the development side of Solity. And besides that we are headquartered in Munich, we have also offices in London and Zagreb. To actually explain the main problem of DeFi at the moment, let's just take a simple case here. All of you probably know these popular strategies that you have your stablecoin and you put it in some of the kind of the projects, and then you're yielding additional interest on top of that, and basically increasing your capital. Here a simple case, we have Aave and Compound. What is the way basically to decide where to invest your asset at the moment? Currently, what everyone is more or less doing at the moment is they are checking the yields on one side of the liquidity pools, they are checking the yields on the other side, and just moving the capital there. I guess most of you can agree with me, this is not really the smartest way because you're not taking the risk in account. A better way would be actually to go in a direction of risk-adjusted returns. So basically assessing the risks, looking at the opportunity, and then moving your capital. The problem is like Aave is basically built on top of a chain like Ethereum. Between Ethereum and Aave there is usually also L2 like Arbitrum. If there is other ecosystem, for example Avalanche, then you have subnets. And actually now you'll see that DeFi is nothing else than a composite of various primitives. And the thing is like all this getting even more complicated. We have now over 100 protocols, we have bridges, we have these yield optimizers, yield aggregators. And for a proper working of, for example, lending protocol, you need also oracles. And all of them are interconnected. That means Aave is connected through liquidity to Compound. If something happens on the Euler hack, you will see it also on the Aave side. And that's basically the main problem. How to assess the risks here. All these primitives there, when you are trying to deploy your capital, you have to deal with all this stuff here. It starts with the chain. You have the consensus. you have the validators, you have their governance structures, then you have the L2s with their governance structure, the sequencer comes into the play, you have the DeFi protocols. It just starts with the security side of smart contracts, but also the liquidity pools with all these liquidation events. There are like liquidity pools where you get inside. You are not sure you are able to get outside. On top of that, there are these yield optimizers, yield aggregators. They are bringing additional securities issues, additional centralization, and then it's getting even more complicated when you have cross-chain strategies. Then you have to deal also with bridges, and then you have the finality of one chain, the finality of the second chain, and you have the bridge which makes actually everything worse. The recent innovation discussions we have on a consensus level with shared security risk-taking is going to magnify the whole topic even more. I mean, I'm not talking here about just oracles and Chainlink where the data consistency can break and then you have an attack on a DeFi protocol. Once we go in and share this security, the definition of systemic risk is going to even be more relevant. And as you see here now, if Aave breaks, you will have consequences on Compound. If something happens on Arbitrum, you will feel it on Aave. If something happens on Morpho, for example, you will see it on Spool and so on. And now the question is like, okay, how to deal with that? This is actually the main problem. Like when we look at DeFi, a new risk category was introduced. It's the fundamental side of the risk. It's not known in the traditional finance space. And the current approaches how to deal with that for liquidity provision are not suitable for that. They are at the moment subjectives. That means like you have a team who built some kind of model how to assess the risk according to their domain expertise. They are simple. So basically it's a very simplified model. So basically what I saw, for example, for smart contract security, they just check if there is an audit, how long is the smart contract deployed, how much TVL do the smart contract have. So basically with more time, it's more secure. This is the assessment of a smart contract. And then lastly, they are static. Like all these primitives I showed you before, even the smart contracts are usually not changeable. All the other elements are dynamic and they are constantly changing. Like, and these scores are not taking this in account. And that's basically where we at Solity Networks came in. We are deploying a big data approach. So basically by indexing and monitoring the whole DeFi ecosystem, starting with the L1, L2 chain, like for example, Ethereum or Arbitrum, DeFi protocols, stable coins, bridges, oracles, including the liquidity pools, focuses on the fundamental side of the risk. So we are getting data around security, liquidity flows, decentralization governance, socials and development activity, and then enabling our customers to build risk-related products, which can be customizable risk scores, which updating in real time. It could be like more advanced risk frameworks for insurance protocols, but also alerting and monitoring system. And we are also aware of that. If we want to enable the next generation of DeFi, which is going to be like smart, we have to think about decentralization, decentralizing the whole tech stack from storage, from computing up to delivery to the protocol. When we look at the space at the moment, what's available there? So basically that's our definition. We have the protocol design level and we have the liquidity provision. On the protocol design level, there are many companies out there, like from the auditing companies like Certic up to the economic incentive design companies like Chaos Labs. There are rating systems like FOTA. Yet on the liquidity provision side, not really. The econometrical side is done by few companies, usually by teams who are coming from traditional finance space, and they are applying econometrical models to deal with the risk on that side. Yet on the fundamental side of the risk, so a broader approach to the risk, the companies there are what we identify like most like exponential and DeFi safety, and that's basically where we at Solity position ourselves. The thing about the solution, what we aim to do, it's very, how to say it, like complex. Like you need a lot of domain expertise, and we are aware of that, to deal with all these facets. There are many companies, and that's the reason why we said, okay, let's build a risk infrastructure. Let's enable the next generation of DeFi by building a DeFi validator layer. So basically, we are at the moment running our own nodes to get the on-chain data, and we build the whole data pipeline to get the off-chain data. We are also building in the moment this infrastructure routing layer, what we call it like this. And the idea is like to onboard various middleware companies in the space, from decentralized storage up to decentralized computing, with various versions. Why? We learned in discussion with many customers that they are all in a different stage of decentralization. They understand decentralization all very, very differently. And it's even getting more complicated when you have to explain them that in the end you have to pay for decentralization. And that's the reason why we said, okay, let's onboard various solutions there. Let's create various routing options, and then incentivize the routing options which is going to be mainstream. So basically there are companies who are fine with centralized immutable databases, normal centralized computing and Oracle networks. There are also startups who want to have everything decentralized, and they are willing to pay for that, and we are going to enable that. And then on top of that, basically enabling the processing, running various algorithms from statistical analysis, network analysis, machine learning, deep learning, and so on. And the idea is basically to build customizable risk products. It could be like risk cost for whole strategy rebalancing up to portfolio rebasement. It could be more advanced risk frameworks for insurance protocols, liquid staking, or just alerting system for example, a trading infrastructure if there is in place, or for TradFi, or a new protocol which is deployed. The delivery, of course, APIs for the companies who are comfortable with that, or through oracles, if we are talking more about DeFi protocols. The customer groups we are targeting at the moment are really the liquidity provision-oriented companies, from yield aggregators, yield optimizers, liquid staking, insurance protocols, but also lending protocols. I mean, this is the current stage, what we are currently building, but the idea is actually something else. Opening up the platform. Enabling third parties, providers to provide data which is not currently available there. Enabling third parties to provide modeling power, modeling solutions which we are not currently giving here. For example, a good case would be like agent-based simulation modeling, which we are not capable to do because we don't have the domain expertise on that side, but there are companies who are willing to integrate with us to enable that. And also data providers who have, for example, data on security side, data on liquidity provision, to build more advanced risk frameworks. And in the end, those risk frameworks which are going to be used by the protocols, in the end, they are going to be like paid through that solution, and basically they are going to get their shares through that. And the idea is like, once all these third party providers come inside, there is enough data and enough variability to build more advanced models which can address the liquidity provision side of that. We learned from experience. We saw from other projects when they started with the idea of decentralization and opening up that this was not really a good idea in the beginning to do that, because they didn't manage to get immediate value to the end customer, and then in the end they didn't manage to get the network effect. And that's the reason why we said, okay, let's go with the centralized case. Let's build the first part by ourselves and then opening up the platform from the modeling side up to the data side. And I'm happy to announce over the last 8 months, we managed to launch our beta solution, and here is just a short overview how it's working. We made it very simple, very intuitive, that everyone can create their own risk framework with very little knowledge about risk. But if they have domain expertise, they can use that for their use case. In this case, like block split risk framework, it's from the conference from the last week. As you see, basically they just select the ecosystem they are moving around out of these various primitives, and they can click save, and automatically a default risk model is deployed. And our way how we assess the risk is basically by building sub-risk models on various topics, from security up to liquidity, because we learned you cannot build a big model who analyzes everything. You have to break it down. and then enabling the customer that he can do optimization if he's comfortable with simple cases like changing the weighting factors of all these various models to build his own adjusted solution in the end. But also what we want to enable domain expertise, people who know, who understands DeFi, to go on a parameter level, the input level, and changing the weighting factors of every single parameters, even the modeling side, to build something specific for their use case, which can be used in their XY protocol we don't even know at the moment. We started on Ethereum side. We integrated most of the blue chips. And from here on, we are now going in the direction of L2s, integrating Arbitrum and other L2 solutions. And from there on to other L1s where the liquidity is, for example, Cosmos Chain and Binance Chain, with the idea to attract as much as possible customer. And I'm also happy to announce that we are going from now on in the opening and decentralization of the whole solution. That means by the end of the year, we are going to have a first running solution which is going to open where third-party solutions can come, provide additional data, and they can build additional models which we are not currently addressing. The customer or the target customer, what we are currently aiming for is yield aggregators. We integrated with the first paying customer, which is Pool.finance. It's a yield aggregator on Ethereum. And also traditional finance space, mostly hedge fund managers. And currently the beta solution is tested with roughly 30 design partners. And lastly, just to conclude, I believe the quote from Dan Mohet is still on time. DeFi in the current form is going to change. And the next generation of DeFi is going to have a strong risk management, and we believe that Solity Network is going to enable that. So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask or join just our Telegram group, and we can continue. Yes?
Hey, so you're collecting data sources from the blockchain, right? So how can someone be sure that you're not biased, you didn't change the data, and you're not completely biased on it?
Yeah, this is the topic actually. The question is like at which stage you are addressing that. Now we started with the centralized case. It was the trade-off we made. So basically, you have to trust us, but in the end you get immediate value. You can build risk models. Once we open up platform, there are going to be proofs. There are going to be like third-party providers who provide decentralized storage, immutable centralized databases with proofs, and then you can have the trust as a DeFi protocol to integrate that. We are aware of that. It's a poor trade-off at the moment to get as much as possible traction.
Why is not the Graph network working out for you guys?
We started actually working with Graph, and then we learned that there are a lot of subgraphs who are not standardized. There are subgraphs doing the same thing with a different data cases. It just starts, for example, with yields, and you will learn like you have 3 subgraphs giving you different yield, and how are you able to trust that? And if we, as a company, have to provide centralized case providing value, then we have to do it right. And that's the idea. We are just I would call it first data provider, focusing on this narrow case what we have. And then later we are going to open up. The idea is like to onboard as much as possible security related companies who have amazing data sources from DeFi up to Go+. There are also on the economic side companies who are doing amazing stuff. Even Block Analytica here. And the hope is basically to onboard them to help us to bring their domain expertise to make this model even smarter than they are currently. Any other questions?
Well, I just wanted to say, once that does open up, it would be really interesting to use UMA's Oracle to be able to pull in the data if it's verifiable. And I'm also wondering if the model outputs would be in some way verifiable, that there might be some cases that you can like run the model again and check that it ran in like some specified way.
Yes, I mean, okay, there is like, you have the computing side. There are like providers we are working with who provide let's call it decentralized computing networks, where you basically have a consensus on the modeling side. You cannot get it constantly right because it's ML side, but you have some kind of thresholds, and you decide on that side and bring it up. We are also very open about Oracle. That's basically also the decision from our side. We are never going to go in this direction to build by ourselves Oracle. So we are going to enable that someone can use Chainlink, Redstone, SEDA, whatever Oracle is out there. Not only that, we are actually going to onboard this Oracle here because of this idea of composite of the risk, like of the primitives, that someone has to see the difference between Chainlink, between SEDA, between Redstone, what kind of risk he's taking. For example, on a more popular data from the real world, for example, price. Not all of them are same. And basically, then in the end, the user has to decide what he wants to use. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, great. I would say just last note, as you saw our beta version, we have 30 design partners. If you want to test our solution in the current form, like just ping me. I'm here at the conference, or join our Telegram group, and we will provide you a test account. We are really looking for feedback to improve the user experience, to look at the data sources we have at the moment, what you believe should be like also there. That once we go into centralization and open up the platform, at least some base threshold of value is there that people are looking at that as useful. Okay, thank you.